Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel uh, AI in user acquisition, automation versus human intuition, who wins in mobile game marketing. And today, I'm Sasha from GameLight. We are a rewarded marketing platform for mobile games, and we also use AI to help developers acquire high quality users. And this topic is also very relevant for us, so I'm super excited to be joined today by Alexey Hitrik from North Current, Alexey Gusev from Soft Games, and John Wright, who is a game industry consultant. Yeah. So user acquisition has changed a lot in the past few years, and AI is doing things that used to take a long time before, from targeting and bidding and creatives. So it's fast and powerful, but as we rely more on automation, we still need to ask, where do humans still make a difference? Can AI replace creative thinking and strategy? So today we're going to talk about what AI is really good in user acquisition, and where human input is still essential. Let's start with a short round of introductions. Can you please, guys, introduce yourself? Let's start with John.
Hello everyone, I'm John Wright. So currently I'm an independent gaming consultant and I work with different studio and different gaming tech companies on go-to-market, strategy, product fit, a bunch of other things. Before that I was VP of mobile games at Quali, so Alexey was the head of growth and he reported to me. So we know each other well. And before that I was head of client services for Unity and also VP of operations for Luna Labs. So I've been in the industry for about nearly 15 years.
Thank you, John. Let's continue with Alex.
Alex Hitrik, head of UA North Current. So we are based in Lithuania and Vilnius. Been in digital marketing for the last from 10 to 15 years, something like that, in different spheres. For the last almost 10 years in mobile and around 5-6 years here in North Current. We are specialized more on the casual titles, in cooking games, like our top title is Cooking Fever. So something like this.
Thank you, Alex. Let's continue with Alexey.
Hi guys, Alexey Gusev here. I'm head of growth at Soft Games at the moment. So we as a company are focusing on instant games, but generally all of the other platforms as well. So mobile, web, kind of trying to reach out to the players where they are. And we focus on the casual games predominantly. Before I also worked at Quali, as John has rightfully so pointed out, which was an awesome experience. Before I worked at Stillfront Group, Good Games, Inner Games, you name it. So I went through quite a lot of Hamburg or around Hamburg-based companies.
Okay, thank you guys. So let's start our interesting discussion. And let's start with the basics because AI in user acquisition means very different things depending on who you ask. So let's start with Alex. And what does AI in user acquisition actually cover today? And what's still just a buzz?
For us in UA, it's more about creatives, text content, localization. Creatives more about like creating short videos, for example, from images, some testing hypotheses. We're actually replacing all our content agencies, let's say. We do everything with AI. Plus reporting. I think this is the three main things that we are utilizing.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I would like to ask this question to everyone so that we see like the background, what is AI in user acquisition is for you today. So let's continue with John, the same question.
Yeah, look, I think Alex said the predominance of what I'm going to say, but look, there's a couple of things that I think has been touching AI in UA, and the bulk of it has been creative production, right? And what we've seen is a lot of video creation, a lot of UGC, right? A lot of this stuff that has now been, being able to be possible to be created via different platforms, different companies, different AI agents, etc. But I do feel like a lot of this, Sasha, is coming from more of an iteration perspective rather than a concept perspective. And this is where I think human versus AI, it starts to distinguish itself. So I think that on the concept design, actually the idea of the creative itself still needs to come from a person. And then the iteration part, which is different languages, different colored backgrounds, different characters, all of those micro adjustments that people used to do and it used to spend a lot of time doing, now can be done through AI very simply. The other thing I would say is, and this is also one of those buzzword things, it's like AI versus ML. So there's like optimization of spends, of CPIs, all of that stuff. All of that is traditional ML, but some people are referring to it as AI now. But yeah, some MLs actually optimize the bids that you're spending on the user acquisition platforms, on the sub level, right? So one game has great quality, you spend a higher CPI. One game has lower quality, the CPI you spend lower. But the ML takes care of this. So for me, it's around the bid automation for a quality perspective, and this is where ROAS campaigns have come from, and the creative production side of things. Those are the two things in UA, really.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
just
you so much.
to add to what John has said, market and creative part, I think, is kind of the most developed at this point of time, where AI really has the biggest contribution, I would say. When we are talking about the UA or clean UA topics, so when we are talking about setting up the campaigns, optimizing campaigns, reading the data, or interfering the data and what is happening there, like historically, for many years, the UA was focusing on the ML to a very major part of things. Maybe the thing that I'm missing, and there are quite a lot of attempts to do that at the moment, is something or an AI layer on top of the multiple black boxes between the multiple partners that would be kind of centralizing and unifying. But it is putting a black box on top of a black box. It is an interesting thing. Definitely would be curious to see, but how close we are to that, I haven't really seen any working solution yet. Although I am excited about that for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think also, like, to add everything on top, we can talk about AI in UA, like from the ad network side. Like ad networks become more sophisticated. Like the managers part became like less relevant for it. Like all systems do all AI stuff to find the proper users, and like AI for UA, when we do something to spend less time on a routine task, something like that, to speed up the process, like to get the relevant data, to get relevant reports faster, to create something faster. Like, I think to distinguish these two parts, I think it's also important.
Makes sense. And now with the ad monetization part kind of transitioning to the auto bidders 100%, exactly. I mean, max 16th of July, we kind of are, let's say, from the good perspective, it's becoming way more automatic and there is less manual efforts to set it up. From the other perspective, we are losing all levers that we have on the user acquisition side. And it's like, if everything is AI and it kind of acts as a certain level ground for all of the studios, how can we really stand out? I mean, there are some talks about creators being pulled as one of the last levers by Mr. Zuckerberg. And the last thing is going to be basically the games themselves, right? So this is kind of feels that one of the few ways that we can actually still stand out. What our roles are even becoming working in marketing.
Yeah, we're going to have some questions about creatives and etc. Right now, I have a question to Alexey, which parts of user acquisition process have you fully or mostly automated as a head of growth right now? Like, how does it work?
I mean, marketing creative side of things already relies very heavily on the AI. For ideation, creating some parts of that, creating some of the visualizations and the narrative, it is not optimized completely. Let's say it doesn't work like give me 10 best performing creatives and we receive just the ones that we upload to the ad networks and just sit and be happy. It is helpful to a very substantial extent. Like it enables us to use our time or at the time of the marketing artist or a marketing producer way more efficiently. However, we are not there yet. There are some tools or there are some services that claim that or kind of factor in the data for that. I haven't had really successful tests in terms of optimizing the whole pipeline of the creatives completely. So it seems that there is this gut feeling part that is missing. Reporting, as Alex has rightfully so pointed out, if somebody has the capacity and the data engineering team to, and enough big data, obviously, from the game to start utilizing its own local model for predictions or for quite a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the big data, that's definitely something that is already here. It is very helpful and it is working. There are some caveats, there are some asterisks to that, but I would say we are kind of there. In terms of the user acquisition things per se, like setting up the campaigns or running the campaigns, optimizing, there are layers that could help us with that, or there are like applying has a very sophisticated level of machine learning, and I think it's one of the good reasons why it has been quite successful with their. I think it has begun with the release of their new accent model, like 2-3 years ago by now. However, it's still not there, although I could imagine that that's the direction where it's happening. So setting up the campaigns, understanding and setting up the proper campaigns is still kind of a huge chunk of what we're doing. Let's say who is gonna, this part of the user acquisitions, like who's of us trying to trick the system to a certain extent, is still kind of present. Whether I want for this part to go away completely or not, I don't know, to be honest. There will be definitely pros to that, but there will be quite substantial cons.
Okay, thank you so much. So we can talk a bit about the human side of the things. So let's talk about where humans are better. So you already started to talk about this. So I have a questions to John. What part of user acquisition do you think will never be fully automatable, AI?
Yeah, look, I think you can't take away human creativity when it comes down to the art of your marketing, especially with your games. Like you ultimately can train an AI to do a lot of things, but like thinking for itself and coming up with new, like outside of the box ideas and concepts from a marketing creative perspective is something that I have not seen any AI be able to do as of yet. Okay, so there is still a home for creativity in games, and it will be the same thing with games creation, guys. You know, when there will become a point where you can potentially train an AI to make a winning game concept, but I don't think, at least right now, it's going to turn into something that's going to make tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. I think there's still always going to be a place for creativity in game production or marketing or wherever we part of our industry. So where I would say, Sasha, is again, we still need teams to be working together on creative ideas that can then be maximized using AI. The problem which AI has created is that the rate of production has increased dramatically, but what that creates another problem around testing. So I've got 1,000 creatives, but I can only test 5 every couple of days on AppLovin. So it's not directing me to finding the winning creative out one of 1,000. It's just giving me 1,000 to test. And that in turn is another issue, another problem that we need to solve. And I think there will become a time where we or the AI will get better in picking the winner, because what Alex, Alexey, and myself care about is getting the best performing creative as early as possible, right? That's what increases the metrics. That's what pumps up scale. That's what increases DAO and ARPDAO and revenue as a whole. So it's not just about focusing on pure production and building 1,000 assets. It's about creatively knowing which one to pick. And that also is not just the concept creation, but also that gut feeling that Alexey was talking about. Like, you as a person that's worked on this game for a number of years will know instinctively that creative is more likely to beat that one. And look, not every time we'll be right, but our experiences as part of the studio will help us, find something that's more likely to be successful, in my opinion. So yeah, AI will help massively on production, on iterations, on colors, on localization, on different characters, all of the small stuff. But the creativity and knowing what to choose first and what to test first, that will come from the team.
Okay, thank you so much, John. I have a question for Alex. What's from your side of the thing? Where do you see there is still needed a clear human judgment in user acquisition and user acquisition campaigns?
Yeah, it's mostly again about creatives and creative ideation, something that is need to be like some ideas that should be produced. I also was thinking about like one idea. That objective and subjective, when you can assess something with like objective factors. So yes, AI can cope with it. If it's just subjective, like I don't like this color, like, or I think that like that character will be better, or some background or whatever sound. So in this case, I think this is only human who can like decide, and in this case, AI cannot overpower human. And yeah, if we're talking about testing, also, I agree, of course, to get the result as early as possible. Plus, I would like to get, but maybe it's for another topic, like to get not only the answer what one and which creative one, but why this creative outperformed like the other one. What was the factor for this performance? But I think we will return back later. Thank you.
Maybe just to contribute to something that Alex has said and John, they have touched on the marketing creative side of things. I think it's quite enough said. But when we are talking about the user acquisition, AI or machine learning is very good when it operates within the statistical significance. When we are outside of that, and there are still quite a lot of games that are operating outside of the things that are statistically significant, or the things that you can where you can observe patterns that are replicable. This is still where I would say the gut feeling or the user acquisition or the human touch is more beneficial in those regards.
We have a questions from the audience, from Olivia, and her question is for all the members of this panel. What are the main strengths and potential drawbacks of using AI-driven user acquisition strategies? Maybe let's start with John.
What are the main strengths and potential drawbacks? So again, I think the main strengths are you're supercharging the team. So a much smaller team these days can get a lot more done using AI, right? And it was the same thing 5-10 years ago around automation. It was like, okay, how do we automate different things to improve our efficiencies? How do we maximize our time as professionals? So AI, for me, the biggest strength is, again, that automation factor and taking care of certain tasks and things that do not require maybe the level of competency that me or someone in the team would need, right? There's just certain things that historically we had to do because we needed to do them because there was no other way, right? And I think now it's our job is to become much more strategic, much more knowledgeable, much more creative. And that is where the strengths lie, that we cultivate that strength of creativity and strategy rather than doing menial day-to-day tasks that an automation or an AI can do for us. That's where I think the strengths are. The drawbacks, again, for me, the big one that I just mentioned about the creative production, like not just because you're producing lots of assets doesn't mean that it's a good thing. It's defocusing potentially what you want to test. And Alexey will tell you, it was better to spend to do 1,000 tests, right, and spend thousands of dollars per test to find out the last one is the correct one, or is it better to know from the beginning that is the best one and test that? Because I guarantee you're going to save a lot more money if you know which one to pick rather than testing 1,000 bad creatives. And that is the big drawback for me, is that there is an element of defocus on the quality of creatives, but the models will improve, they'll get better and stuff like that. So those are the two things for me.
Although there are some attempts at the moment on the market to kind of open up opportunities of pre-live marketing, pre-testing of the creatives through the AI and the machine reading as well.
I've actually seen that, dude, actually. So it's like a system that tests, like, will do some sort of analysis of the game, of the creative, right, and give you an indication of if it will be successful or not. See, that's super cool. Like I'm up for that sort of stuff. That's innovation. That will help us.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, and that would be very interesting to see if it works live, just because of the fact that, there is such a huge fragmentarity in terms of what kind of creatives work between which partners. Something that works for Facebook or TikTok doesn't work for the ad networks, doesn't work between the ad networks. I mean, there are some similarities, there are some differences as well. So these models kind of need to account for the black boxes of the machine learning from every partner. So it's definitely not an easy task to tackle, but it is 100% interesting what those attempts will be looking like in a couple of years.
Okay, and Alex, do you have anything to add? If you want, I can read the question because it disappeared from the screen.
I think I can agree with John that I think one of the biggest strengths of AI right now in the UA that you can use less people for UA, let's say. So one person, I think especially it's important for small companies that when one person can be orchestrate everything with additional tools, but still, at the end of the day, it should be an experienced person to have decisions made based on the data, observed data. So, like this.
Okay, thank you for the question, Olivia. And let's talk a bit about the creatives. We already started a bit, and it's one of the most talked about areas where AI is making some moves. So, Alexey, are AI-generated creatives performing on par with human-produced one in your experience? You already talked a bit about this, but maybe let's extend a bit this topic as it's very interesting.
Let's say I haven't seen that purely AI-generated creatives have yet outperformed the ones where the marketing creative team was involved, even though it was building the same creatives out of, let's say, the puzzle pieces that were built with the help of AI, or let's say there needs to be a certain input or human-focused input in order to make it work. Again, this magic button creates me 10 creatives based on this data. It does exist to a certain extent. There are services that are offering that. There are companies that are offering that, in my anecdotal experience, they always do tend to perform quite substantially worse than the ones that have a certain, like, there is a team overlooking the creation of those creatives.
Yeah, I also want to
Okay, so
agree with Alexey here. I think it's a very important distinction. Like all of the AI products that are currently to market, they don't have like a magic button that you press and then it creates the 100% finished article. There has to be involvement from a person to, you know, the prompts, the creatives, the direction. So there is human input, and then the AI is creating that asset. The ones that are 100% just generated look awful, and they don't perform very well, in my opinion. I did a lot of testing with the UGC style formats because this has become like there's companies like Creatify and, you know, Paul Day and all of these companies that have come to market. And I think, yeah, if there was one type of creative which I think has potentially been replaced, is the traditional UGC actor created versus the AI generated one. Because previously, you know, we would go out and we would find an actor and give them a script and say, okay, like film yourself saying these things, and then we would use that in a creative, and that would cost, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000. Some of these techs, you know, they're like $20 a month, and they'll generate you any type of looking person you want. It could be, you know, a woman, a man, an old man, a boy, black, white, Asian. It doesn't matter, right? You just put in the specifics of the actor you want, and it will create that for you, rather than having to go and find someone. So those creatives are the ones I think are going to be the ones, potentially the ones replaced first, based on what I've seen and the results I've seen.
thank you so much, John. Alexey, you want to add something? Or I thought you wanted to add something. I have a question for you. How do you currently integrate AI into your creative production workflow?
For me or for Alexey?
For you. For you, yes.
Creative department is heavily utilizing AI possibilities for production, but it's not the main thing there. Still, it's kind of supply. For example, they need to draw something new, and for the video asset even. And with AI tools, it definitely like saves time, like hours of work of the designer. And we're utilizing like stable diffusion, Midjourney, so you preserve the assets. Like you can every time get back to what you already did. So like to keep the style of what you're producing. Statics, it's 100% helpful. Like again, saves a lot of time. You can test whatever you want. Even just simple prompt in ChatGPT, and you pull it into Facebook ads, let's say, and sometimes it really shows very nice performance, but for a very short time. But again, worth trying. And localization, you just see production. You can like force whoever speaks Japanese or Spanish, Mexican, and yeah, you don't need to hire any like special people for that. Like again, yeah, couple bucks, and you already have a fully localized video for specific region that you want.
Okay. We have a lot of questions from the audience. Let's first talk about a bit about optimization. So John, what's the most surprising thing AI has taught you about your audience or campaign? Did it happen to you? Some insights that AI showed you?
God, I mean, I'm gonna pass that over to Alexey, and I'm gonna think about an answer, because yeah, he's much more on the or he was much more on the day-to-day than I was. But let me I'll have a think whilst he answers.
Let's say in my experience, it wasn't really anything that is surprising that the AI shown us. It's more so that it reconfirmed some of the anecdotal observations that we have seen based on the way larger data set. That's one thing. The other thing that it has helped to identify in some of the cases, the so-called hidden winners. So some of the maybe smaller geos or smaller audience buckets that we could reach out to potentially versus the main huge chunk of the target audience that we're working with. But apart from that, I mean, usually the growth managers from my team at whatever companies that I'm working with are very knowledgeable of what the target audience is for their games, what kind of users we're targeting, what works, what doesn't work. So let's say if AI would really surprise us or them, that kind of would be a bad sign, as in we don't really know too much what we're doing. To a certain extent, there are some, I don't know, hidden spots or golden nuggets, if you will, that it could potentially help identify. But at the moment, with the algorithmically driven user acquisition campaigns, I mean, I think majority of the gaming companies are relying on the ROAS to 80 to 90%, depending on your mix and depending how, what kind of campaigns you are doing. There are no stones left unturned by the ads that we're showing. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I have to agree
kind of.
with my big colleague here, because the fact is that everyone is doing ROAS optimized campaigns, or most of the bigger networks are. There is no differentiators that we can use anymore apart from creative, right? Like creative is the only thing left for us to really, where we have a potential lever to test. And yeah, that means that we have to double down on that stuff and trust the black boxes. And that's not great for us as developers, because the networks have far too much control and they can dictate margin and all of the other stuff, which we know is happening in the current monopoly. But it does mean that we have to be just more hyper focused on the creative production and again, being more creative. And for me, that's doing more concepts than iterations. Concepts take a lot more time, but it's where you see the best results, right? If you do an iteration change on a creative, you might see a couple of points difference on the IPM, right? You might go from a 10 to a 12 or a 10 to a 13, but a different concept, that is where you can see a 10 IPM versus a 20 IPM, not on the little insignificant more iteration changes. So that's where I'm saying, like, we have to refocus and just put a lot more time and focus on the concepts and the creative aspects rather than a lot of the iterations like we used to do. And I think one other thing that AI can help with is the culturalization and obviously localization of assets. So we find a winning creative if we can, train the models to then do 10 additional creatives that are not only localized in language but also culturalized with different colors, different wording, different characters. Even that would be something that's really interesting to me. So I don't know if it's there yet, but that's where I think it will go.
Okay, thank you, John. Alex, I have a question for you. How we can stay ahead of competitors if we are all using similar AI tools?
I think if we summarize what we already mentioned, so the only part what is left is creative part. So I don't want to repeat it one more time. Everyone using the same networks. Networks are completely automatized or whatever. So you have to distinguish with your creatives. So test, do absolutely different approaches. So even if you think that it won't suit your audience, so sometimes, and it happens in different niches, that you try and absolutely like a bold prediction or your hypothesis, and it works out. So never stop testing your creatives, I would say, in this way.
Okay, let's grab a question from the audience. How can marketers ensure AI models remain unbiased? John?
This is the big question, isn't it? I don't know if anyone remembers, like a year or so ago, there was someone did this exercise where it asked ChatGPT to create an image of every country, like an image that defined the country. And they did one, and it was like Somalia, and it was a guy with an AK-47 and a rocket launcher, and like, you know, robbing stuff. And so the models are trained on user sentiment, and there is an unnatural bias in a lot of it. I think the way that you navigate this is by building out your own. So the publicly accessible ones are going to be trained on too big of a data set to avoid this. So like if you want to if you want to do better and you want to build your own based on your own data and your own sentiment, your own voice, that is where you would then be able to circumnavigate this bias. But if you're just doing it on public accessible data to a very wide range audience, then you're going to come up with issues. And again, another simple example would be if you asked, 100 million Americans to describe the Middle East, most of them wouldn't do it in a very positive light. And that would be where the bias would come from, right? Even though we know things are very, very different from people's perception. So yeah, it's a good question. It's a tough question. It's a hard one to battle with right now.
I don't think that we really have something that is an unbiased AI model at the moment. I mean, you can, as John has said, the best that you can do is to train it based on your data. However, depending on how you collect the data or how you present the data or what kind of triggers you use for the data, all of that might introduce intrinsic bias to what is being analyzed and what is being presented. So being knowledgeable of that is, first of all, very important. But as John has rightfully so pointed out, using any of the open models, there is going to be a rather intrinsic bias into the AI model by itself.
Okay, we have another question from the audience about creatives. If somebody wants to share what specific AI tools your team are using for your creatives and at what point, if you want to share some tools that was particularly useful, we can do this or we can skip.
I mean, so I know Anna personally. So Anna, you can message me on WhatsApp. But no, look, a couple of tools that I've used quite nicely again, like Creatify, Pool Day have been good ones. Black Box. Trying to think of a couple more. I don't know. I'll have a look over what I've tested and send you a list. But maybe Alex tools.
I mean, there are some more obvious ones like Midjourney, DALL-E, or something for the static creation that is being used. There are some a bit more obscure ones that are made specifically for some light animations or animation chunks of that. You can use openly available ones. Google AI with the recent, I believe, mid of May release actually does quite a good job with the new Gemini beta release in creating chunks of short chunks of videos, maybe even better than some of the paid services available.
Agreed. They did the first one with sound now, right? So post the update, you can have, before it was all just videos without sound. Now it's video and sound and voiceovers. Yeah, the update's pretty crazy, dude. I agree with you. It's a lot of companies are probably going to go out of business because of Google now.
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, a sad thing for the companies, maybe a positive thing for me so far, since I'm not that much in the AI business and I can make use of that. I haven't found the tool to go for. It's more so how they tap into your processes, how your anecdotal experience or of your marketing creative producers or your creative team is with those tools. Generally, what I try to do with my team is to encourage to experiment as much as possible with as many tools as possible. Make use of trials, go for the open ones, try this, try that, and ultimately every creative manager or every creative producer would have their own set of tools that they prefer to be working with. But as John has said, there are a plethora of that.
Okay. Let's talk about the future of user acquisition and AI in user acquisition, and then we can continue with the user's question because we have quite some. So, Alex, what's one thing you wish AI could do in user acquisition and it still can't?
What I mentioned, exactly what I mentioned before, to have an answer why, and not only to determine and define the winner for any test. So right now, I think, I don't think that there are tools that from not even 1,000, but from 10 videos can tell you why one video outperformed the others, and what is the main reason why audience like this video more than the others. So this factor probably, and human creativity again to ideation. So maybe something will happen in this direction. I don't know. I don't think that we will have. Well, I think maybe we will have, but not in really foreseen future. But who knows? Like a fully autonomous UA solution, when you just say, I want to get this return on spend or whatever, and you just press this button, and magic happens. So maybe, but I don't see one.
I need a huge AI-driven lever. Increase the ROAS to 150% or 200, while keeping the ad spend. It's like that. That's something that I need.
I mean, there are companies that are starting to. I know this is a UA conversation, so I'll keep this brief, but we are seeing AI implementation into monetization now, right? We are seeing personalized offers, which are helping with conversion to paying users and increasing average customer value. And that in turn rebalances the unit economics of what we do. The better the monetization, the more we can spend on UA. So it's good for all of us to see these advancements in AI in monetization, because AI in UA, in marketing, has been going for years, right? Like I said, the ML models go back 5 years plus, like creatives, 2.5 years, 3 years maybe, Alex. And so so AI in improving the monetization, which will in turn improve the growth loop to allow us to do better UA, that would be something very interesting. And the other one I'm waiting for, and you must, and everyone's probably saw the recent raise by Set, which is playables, AI playables. Playables has always been a very complicated thing to develop. You've had to develop them in HTML or you've had to develop them in Unity. Obviously, I was part of the founding team of Luna, so I was part of the creation of that technology, so I know it very well. And, playables sometimes take weeks to build, and then we test them, and it's not a 0-1 game, right? It might take, and again, I'll give you a small anecdote. When I was at Iron Source, we developed a playable for Machine Zone, and it took 200 variations before we found a success. But when we found that success, it generated tens of millions of dollars. So a way to find a successful playable that didn't take months to build and lots of variation testing, stuff like that. And this is what Set have just raised 27 million for, is to do playable creation using AI. So I think that's a space to watch, is if we can crack playable development using AI, that would be a massive achievement.
Thank you so much. I have a question about, like, I think Alexey already started to speaking about how user acquisition teams should prepare for AI to test more. So, like, what advice would you give user acquisition teams preparing for more AI-driven future? Alexey, maybe you have more insights, or we can.
Yeah. Sorry, please go ahead.
So I can mention that having all these AI tools for development, for programming, for UI development, so you can build your own dashboard, what you need, like literally in hours. So, for example, you are missing something. If you're missing something in your like BI dashboard, and you want like you really want to have it, you can do it by yourself in a couple hours and to use it. So maybe to utilize it, not because right now it's really easy. Of course, you need to have some like sort of understanding what you are doing, but still you can do it like really fast and not paying too much.
Okay. John, do you have anything? What would you advise for user acquisition team for AI-driven future?
I just look, guys. At the end of the day, AI is a tool, and I feel like you have to just accept the fact that it's part of our ecosystem now, and embrace it for the future. Right? I do not believe that AI is going to be stealing jobs. I think it makes us smarter. It makes us faster. It will make us more. I say teams will be smaller, but they will be more efficient, and that also is a good thing from a financial health perspective. After all of the recent layoffs that we've had in the industry the last couple of years, smaller, more effective teams are the way that we sustain the industry and create growth. So again, don't be nervous to use it. Play around with it, test it. Like I said, we've been, Alex, Alexey, and myself have been doing this for a couple of years now. There is no boogeyman, right? It's just a tool, and the fact is, if you don't use it and other people are, it gives them a better advantage than you. So just play around with it, have fun, don't be intimidated, test it wherever you can. That's all I'll say.
I would say that at the moment, like every UA manager needs to act more as a good generalist rather than really focusing and understanding one rather narrow thing. As in, I would say that you need to understand how the whole infrastructure works way better now to make use of the AI tools, to be able to contribute to that, and like to learn or get into the details, something that you will be able to kind of to get into by doing. But if you don't have the understanding how the data works, how you're gathering the data, how you're gathering the data points, how your mobile tracking works, how you're getting the user ID, how you're matching the data, how the ad monetization side of things tap into, how your user acquisition side of things tap into, how your creatives having an impact, without having at least rough understanding or a general understanding of those things, you wouldn't be able to have the correct prompts. You wouldn't be able to work with AI properly. So understand the infrastructure, understand the environment, and yeah, don't be afraid of AI. AI is not there to save us, but it is making quite a lot of things substantially easier. And I would just support what John is also saying. Like the marketing teams will be becoming smaller, but they will be able to do way more things with the same amount of people.
Okay, thank you, Alexey. We have a question from Hannah. Hello, everyone. Love to have you here. I need to ask, what kind of data privacy concerns should we be aware of when using AI in user acquisition?
I wonder if Hannah's a lawyer. Hannah, are you a lawyer? You sound like my lawyer.
if you have any insights on this.
No, look, I mean, I'll say my piece, and I'll pass on to the other two guys. But oh God, it's such like a quandary at the moment in the industry. Is like, okay, using AI, are we infringing ourselves? Are we making ourselves liable? Everyone has seen or heard one of these ads, which is like sounds like Morgan Freeman, but it's not really Morgan Freeman, but you kind of know it's Morgan Freeman. You know, like somewhere they've got an AI to create a voice that is distinct enough that you relate it to potentially a famous person. There was, ads in China using the likeness of Tom Hanks that I saw, and China is its whole different thing. China don't give a fuck. They'll do what they please. We in the West are a little bit more accountable. Am I concerned currently? No, because there's too much ambiguity in the industry and in the law itself. I think in the next couple of years there might be some sort of landmark court case that comes to market, and someone is sued by Disney or Marvel or one of these big IPs for some sort of case. But right now, I think from a privacy perspective, the only thing is don't upload your data models to ChatGPT. Please do not upload sensitive information and ask it to do something in ChatGPT, because then it's publicly accessible. So you have to be smart and you need to have an element of common sense. But until there's like a landmark court case where someone is sued over, public data that has become publicly accessible, which shouldn't have been, I don't think it's a huge concern right now for me personally. If you ask my lawyer, different story. Okay, but yeah, I would love to hear what Alexey and Alex think as well, because this is a very complicated subject at the moment.
There are a lot of way more smarter people that are thinking on this right at that point of time. So, I prefer not to bother myself with that. We are in a bit of a Wild West situation at the moment. There is a lot of ambiguity. There are a lot of weirdness what AI has brought to user acquisition and in general to this world. I would say it will take some time before the legal base would cover those cases, even if it will be able to cover those cases. Like certain normalization will definitely come in the coming years. We are not there yet. I mean, there are some obvious things, or like, the common knowledge what you should and you shouldn't be doing there. So stick to that. Apart from that, experiment, try to understand, act in good faith.
Okay, thank you. Alex, do you have anything to add?
Not too much. We are just trying not to walk on this fine line. I mean, using some noticeable characters, so just not doing it at all. Though, as far as I remember, this topic exists like all the way along. Like, if you just draw it, it will not be considered as like infringement. But now it's like if you draw it in, let's say, ChatGPT, so well, it's the same topic, just going from year to year. But we are trying to avoid it like completely and not use it at all. So like that.
We have time for a couple more questions from the audience. So we have 5 minutes left. And we have a question from Sofia Aurora. How are smaller studios using AI for user acquisition differently than larger publishers? Are there unique advantages or challenges they face? Can you share any case studies or sources where I can delve more into it? Do you have any insights, Alexey?
I mean, the only thing I'll say is that I think smaller studios are not held accountable to the same sort of standards to larger studios. Larger studios have red tape, and they have paperwork, and small studios can be a lot more agile. So there's a lot more testing capabilities in a small studio. So I would say, yeah, the small studios do have an advantage in that respect. But I can't think of a particular example of like a small studio testing something that maybe a large studio wouldn't have, because again, creative production and all the stuff that we've spoken about today is quite general. But I don't know, Alexey, Alex, anything like you can think of?
I mean, in my anecdotal observations, like to the bigger studios or bigger corporations, there are quite a lot of self-imposed restrictions that are prohibiting AI development within those. From this perspective, I can only support what John has said. Like, what I'm seeing, smaller studios are way more agile in terms of implementing, testing, understanding, making use of AI that is available on the market. And I would say that those or smaller studios exactly are going to be the biggest winners at the moment from the implementation of the AI or from making use of the AI in all of the parts of the funnel of the game production and marketing.
Yeah, more free space for improvisations, for tests, and less risk management of the whole corporation.
Okay, we have a question from Julia for John. I'd love to hear your take on how do you strike a balance between using AI automation and still leaving room for creative experimentation?
Okay, so again, for me, it's about continuing to conduct creative-led meetings. So what I mean by that is I would get a marketing artist, I would get a marketing producer, I would get someone from the UA team, I would put Alexey or whoever from the leadership was involved in that, and I would literally put us into a room with a whiteboard and still continue to ensure that we were thinking creatively and outside of the box. So it's about conducting those things either through Zoom or in person, right? It doesn't matter about the medium, but it's about dedicating time to being creative and coming up with ideas, doing the word bubbles and all of this other stuff that can help you come up with new concepts. So again, for me, it's about spending time with people on big creative ideas, and then the balance with the AI is again the iteration side. It's about the production. It's about an example would being a marketing artist a couple of years ago would probably spend about 2 days a week doing iterations, right? Changing background colors, doing localization, replacing a character to do an A/B test. The marketing artist now doesn't have to spend 2 days a week doing all this bullshit stuff that they hated doing because it was so boring, right? Like it just wasn't interesting. It wasn't fun just making all these little changes, but it was a necessity for the role. And you can argue the same thing with UA, monetization, and every other aspect of the business of games. It just allows us, those people to automate a lot of the boring stuff for the AI, and then again bring it back to allow us to be much more creative more often. So instead of allocating 2 days a week to do all this stuff, you can get the AI to do that in a fraction of the time, and then you can spend more time with your colleagues and also researching. One of the best things for coming up with new ideas is playing games. And a lot of the time we deprioritize that, right? Like we don't sit there and play our competitors' games as much as we should. We don't do exploratory stuff into the market because we're busy. We're working 50 hours a week trying to make money in games. It's really tough. It's a really tough thing. So yeah, like again, letting the AI do all of that heavy lifting so we can have more fun and do more research, and spend more time together being creative. That's the future for me.
Okay. We have some time, so as we have a couple of questions like this. So maybe Alex, you can share your take on this question about AI tools, about AI automation and creative experimentation, and we're gonna wrap up after this.
Can you reiterate again? Like which
Yeah,
specifically?
It was the same that John answered. How do we balance AI automation with need for creative experimentation? But we're running out of time. If somebody has an insight, you can join.
It's like in the last seconds, like nothing. AI will not be able to kill the human connection. Human connection and the human experimentation and like certain synergies come in, or certain ideas that come in the middle of the night when you're sitting at the bar. I don't think that like AI will be able to change that.
Absolutely. Walking my dog, having a shower. That's where I get my best ideas. You can't replace that. I agree with Alexey.
Yep, totally.
Okay, guys. Alex, and your insights.
Totally agree.
Totally agree. Okay, our time is up, and I want to thank you so much, Alexey, Alex, and John, for a super insightful discussion, and thank you for our audience for their interesting questions, and for the GPC team for having this conference. Delightful to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for the pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Still live?
Yep.
We're still live. Yeah. Someone has to remove us.
We have time to answer some things